Gaza War Day 353. Lebanon War Day 7. I think we're going to have to do something like that now with September 23rd, 2024. Should specify the year, given that yeah, given the obvious, you can deduce why I'm going to start specifying the year of these videos. But let's talk about the Lebanon War and how it's Day 7. Because I start the Lebanon War on the day of the Pager massacre, September 17th, I believe. And the question of the Pager massacre, which we broke down on this channel, the two-way walkie-talkie massacre the next day, and then 2 days later, so Nasrallah spoke and reassured everybody on day 3. And then on day 4, Israel committed a major assassination of major commanders, two major commanders, Commander Akil and Commander Wahebe, and other high-level commanders as well. So the question that arises is, was the pager attack and the walkie-talkie attack setting up the assassination? Do they have, and I couldn't think about how that could have worked, although the unfolding of these massacre, delay, assassination, it's hard to imagine. I don't believe in coincidences. And so I was talking it through with a friend, and one possibility is that there's some contingency plan that Hezbollah has where if our communications are compromised, go to this location and we meet and we reconstitute the command and control and reconstitute our communication, and it's some location. It's probably not known to a lot of people, and there's some time that passes in between, and then we meet there. And maybe Israel got their hands on this through some signal intelligence or some mole. And so they did the pager attack. They did the walkie-talkie attack to trigger Hezbollah to do their contingency plan of their command meeting. And then they hit that meeting in turn. We won't know for a long time, but after that assassination, of major commanders of the Sheikh Radwan force, Israel began major bombing in Beirut and everywhere else of South Lebanon. And after some considerable pounding and aerial massacre that Israel committed, Hezbollah began its long promised retaliation, hitting various sites that it had identified in its Hoopoe bird videos. They had shown Haifa. They had made a special video just about all the targets in Haifa. They had made a video about the Ramat, including the Ramat David Air Force Base and the Rafael um, high-tech production facility. All of these three were the targets that were hit, and they introduced new missiles, not new, but new to this war, the Fadi 1 and the Fadi 2 missiles, area effect missiles, not precision missiles. And they hit them. They hit them despite the Iron Dome, despite all of the interception capabilities of Israel. Now, there's a whole issue here of why did Israel wait so long before starting this war with Lebanon? They waited for their Iron Dome to be depleted. They waited for Hezbollah to clearly figure out how to take out Iron Dome batteries. But I guess it speaks to the fact that Israel's on a political logic and not a military logic. Or, I mean, you can never separate these two. But let's say an internal political logic as opposed to a external strategic political logic, because I don't think they had the opportunity. I think a lot of I made this quip um, in one of our group chats where I said they shouldn't have waited. It wasn't wise of them to wait for the depletion of the Iron Dome. But then again, they also probably were waiting for the depletion of Biden's mental capacity to deteriorate to a certain level before they felt that they could go through with this war that is so open-ended, will be so destructive for Israel, and will presumably compel some expanding degree of US intervention up to and including naval attacks on Lebanon, maybe a wider war between the US and Iran. So that cycle repeated itself yesterday, today, as Israel continued to bomb more and more targets. They killed 500 people in Lebanon today. So in Gaza, they're killing about 100 a day. In Lebanon today, they killed 500 people. Lots of children, as always, residential areas, as always, with Israel. They claim to have targeted. So here's another point. They claim to have targeted the third in command in Hezbollah, a man named Karaki Ali Karaki. And Hezbollah, who confirmed that Wahbe and Akil had died, they said Karaki was fine. And I saw reports, I don't have any confirmation of them, but I saw reports that the reason Karaki didn't die was perhaps because some of the missiles that were launched on the building that he was in didn't explode. So that tells me that once again, the Israelis had successfully targeted someone at the very top of Hezbollah's military command. So if this is true, if the pager attack, if the pager massacre, the walkie-talkie massacre, and then the assassination of Akil and Wahbe on day 4, followed by today, day 6, 7, successful targeting of the third in command, Karaki, successful targeting but unsuccessful assassination because the missiles didn't explode. It means that there is some flaw in Hezbollah's VIP security officer protection that Israel is exploiting, and uh, they've got to plug that. And if today Karaki survived because of a literal miracle, um, that means that the operational security issue could still persist. Is it a mole? Is it just that the US has unbelievable signal intelligence that they're passing on, or some accumulation of information? Who knows? We'll find out. I'm sure we'll find out when we find out. I want the detractors of Hezbollah, of which I am certainly not one, uh, argue that Hezbollah's Nasrallah should not have made so many speeches over the year, that he should save. And he said that when he spoke on day 3 of the war. Um, he said, I was going to save my remarks for the anniversary of October 7th, but the events compel me to speak today. And it's so after the assassination, the day after Nasrallah's speech, Akil and Wahbe were assassinated. And Nasrallah obviously wasn't going to speak again because he had just spoken the day before. And he had projected this confidence that then was undermined by these assassinations. And so it was Sheikh Naim Qasim, who's the Deputy Secretary General, who's also a, excellent leader and who made a very interesting speech at the funeral of uh, Ibrahim Akil. So he said, well, I'll just read a little bit of what he said because he named the war of open accounts, basically the battle of open accounts. So he said, he described who Ibrahim Akil was. He said he was the operations commander in Hezbollah, founded and led the Radwan force since 2008, and was the jihadi assistant to Sayed Nasrallah. Um, he said Israel has committed three painful war crimes against us. So the pager attack, the walkie-talkie attack at the funerals, and then this assassination of Akil Wahabi and these eight other commanders, reflecting the highest levels of brutality we've ever seen. He reiterated what Nasrallah had said about how Israel had been trying to assassinate 5,000 people in the Pager massacre. The occupation sought to paralyze the resistance and halt the support front by targeting Redwan's commanders, but the resistance fighters thwarted this. The wounded are assuring their families and comrades they'll return to the battlefield in any form. We in Hezbollah, the mountains may move, but we will not. And then he says to Israel, you will die of fear, your economy will collapse, and you will not achieve your goals. You have elevated the Palestinian resistance to a global stage. The Lebanese front will continue no matter how long it takes until the war on Gaza ends. The northern settlers will not return. Rather, the displacement will increase and the support will expand. The Israeli military solution only deepens Israel's predicament and that of the northern settlers. Israel has said Lebanon will cease to exist. Jordan is next. Israeli officials have said if Hezbollah doesn't learn, this is all to teach Hezbollah a lesson, apparently. If Hezbollah doesn't learn by this force, we'll use more force. So, I mean, that's logic. That's Zionist logic for you. He said, we are ready for all military possibilities, and you will see the results. We will not specify how. We have entered a new phase titled the Battle of Open Accounts, he calls it. He said, last night we gave a payment on the account, and three rocket barrages reached the Haifa area, hitting their military targets. This is a payment on the account, and if you want to settle the account, watch the battlefield. So, I mean, Hezbollah has always had this position. They've talked about the equation. Now they're talking about accounting. The they will strive to balance the account. So what Israel inflicts on them, they will inflict on Israel. Of course, no one can match Israel's depravity. No one can match Israel's bloodlust. So what it appears to be strategically is that Hezbollah is just expanding the dead zone from which Israelis are evacuating because they don't want to live under Hezbollah's bombardment. So as Israel tries to saturation bomb South Lebanon and try to displace people from there, Hezbollah is bombing northern Israel or launching missiles on northern Israel to displace settlers from there. And the target now appears to be Haifa, as they promised in the Hoopo Bird video that they would target these places, and now they're targeting these places. Um, Now, people are skeptical that a ground war will come. I am not. I think there are troop movements. A lot of Israeli troops and armor is moving to the north, and it's a long buildup, and they're bombing to soften up the targets. They're doing all the things they do before they do an invasion. And I don't think the invasion will be successful, but I think that Israel has the resources to try. I think they can. Um, they wanted to do it sooner, but they had to wait for all these reasons. And but they want to do it, and I think they will. Now, the withdrawal of all these troops to the northern front has actually benefited the Palestinian resistance in Gaza, who have attacked Israeli forces in the two corridors where the Israelis are still the so-called Netzarim corridor in the middle of Gaza, south of Gaza City, and then the Rafah, the Philadelphia corridor of Rafah. There was an attack in Rafah where three bulldozers and two tanks were taken out along the supply line. So sophistication, damage, all of these things are increasing in Gaza as the resistance takes the opportunity of the Israelis drawing down their forces there to send them to Lebanon. So it's important to it's important to note that, right? I mean, Israel has a lot of resources. They have a lot of firepower. They're backed by the US, but resources are always finite, even for Israel, and troops are finite, and armor is finite, and that which goes to the Lebanon border is not available for Gaza. And so the resistance in Gaza will take this opportunity, I believe, to be more bold and to take the fight into these corridors with the Israeli forces that remain there. Um, Anything else? Yeah, West Bank, same deal. Big major fighting in every northern town. Tulkarm, Jenin, Tubas, Nablus. The resistance said they foiled an arrest attempt. There's also fighting in Khalil slash Hebron, aka Hebron. Yemen. Okay, Yemen says they're going to accelerate their retaliation against Israel for what they're doing in Lebanon. And they also issued what they called a final ultimatum to the Saudi Emirati US coalition, they said, which is still acting against Yemen. Iraq also said they're coordinating with the Ansar Allah in Yemen and launching their own drones on Israel. So, and Jordan, there's big demonstrations in Amman. So I guess that's the report right now. In terms of massacres, there are massacres that continue in Gaza as well. And the Lebanese, while they're being massacred, while 500 of them are killed in a day, they said, don't forget Gaza. Don't lose focus on Gaza. Gaza remains the priority. Meanwhile, in Gaza, the resistance is attacking the Israelis and saying, we're doing this for Lebanon. So a lot of two-way solidarity happening there. Oh, one other little news item. I don't know whether we'll see more about this, but Iran, I saw a report that the Iranian authorities said they dismantled a spy network that had been planning a terrorist attack, an Israeli spy network that had been planning a terrorist attack in the country. So maybe they were planning yet another pager type massacre or some supply chain attack or something. And the Iranians foiled it. So, okay, so I'll stop there. That'll be the short report for tonight. Um, Hang in there, like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.